smoke and laughter filled the Patterson backyard. Renkal stood frozen, clutching a bowl of potato salad.
This is wrong. The noise, the heat, my training did not prepare me for this. They are staring. No, they are smiling. Why are they smiling?
Vincent, glad you made it. You look a little off, buddy.
He touched me. The contact is casual, like I belong here. I should recoil.
Brian's hand rested on the alien's shoulder, a gesture invisible to everyone but the spy himself.
These people are not suspicious. They are welcoming. That terrifies me more than any weapon. I am compromised. The mission parameters are failing because of a barbecue.
The sizzle of the grill became a distant hum. A child shrieked with joy somewhere behind him. 3 months earlier, this street had been quiet, and the spy had just begun to learn how to be Vincent. 3 months earlier, in the cold blue gloom of the Coalition Intelligence Directorate, Agent Vrenkal received his assignment.
You will embed on Earth as Vincent, an accountant. Your target, the Patterson family, a coastal American household. They are a baseline human unit, parents and 3 offspring. Observe their behaviors, report annually, and never be detected.
Understood, Director. A 20-year infiltration with 0 operational tolerance for exposure.
Maintain emotional distance. You are a scientist, not a participant. Any attachment is a mission failure.
In a sparse suburban house, Vrenkal opened a briefcase and began to build Vincent.
A species analyzed through one anonymous household. Clinical, predictable. The Directorate will be pleased.
In the mirror, a green-skinned operative practiced human expressions until the face looked almost forgettable. Across the street, the Patterson house glowed with yellow porch light, unaware it was now the center of an interstellar study.
7,300 days of observation. Then I return. Simple. They will never know I was here.
The first week passed in muted drone. From a darkened window, Vrenkal catalogued every departure, every delivery, every laugh that drifted across the lawn.
Predictable. The father leaves at 7:14. The mother tends to vegetation. Offspring swarm at 3:30. Nothing anomalous.
Then, on a mild Tuesday afternoon, the operative stepped outside to simulate a human errand, mail retrieval.
Hey there, neighbor. Just got the mail too. You must be the new guy, Vincent, right?
Direct contact. Not in simulation. Protocol gap. Assess, deflect, and retreat.
We're having our big 4th of July cookout next weekend. Everyone on the block comes. You should join in.
Invitation. Social event. Refusal may blow cover. Acceptance risk exposure. No directive covers this. Yes, that is. I will attend.
Great. Just bring something easy, like potato salad. Linda loves meeting new folks. You'll fit right in.
Potato salad. Research required. This mission just became unpredictable.
The 4th of July barbecue had been a tactical miscalculation from the moment he stepped through the gate.
Vincent, glad you made it. And you brought the potato salad. You are a natural.
So you are the mysterious new neighbor. I am Linda. I hope Brian didn't twist your arm too hard.
Their vocal tones lack any interrogative edge. This is unfiltered curiosity. Alarmingly so.
Mister, your sunglasses are huge. Are you a secret agent or something?
The offspring asked if I was a secret agent. Improvisation required. Deny. Deflect.
Here, try one of Brian's burgers. He's been perfecting them for 20 years.
The food is excessive, the conversation meaningless, and yet the warmth is physiologically disorienting.
At 11:47 p.m., Vincent sat in his darkened apartment and opened a secure report file. He saved the report without noting the tremor in his fingers or the inexplicable weight settling in his chest. A month after the barbecue, a knock came at Vincent's door just after dusk.
Vincent, it's Linda from across the street. I noticed you didn't come by last weekend, and I thought you might be hungry. I brought some leftovers.
Her concern is unsolicited. In my culture, food is ingested, not gifted. This behavior is inefficient. You didn't have to. Thank you.
She pressed the warm container into his hands before he could refuse, her smile leaving no room for suspicion. Alone in his sparse apartment, Renkal placed the still warm container on the counter and stared at it like an enemy encryption.
No scans, no analysis could explain a human who fed a stranger without demanding anything in return.
His next report, transmitted at 2:17 a.m., ended with a word he had never used before: perplexing.
The Directorate will demand clarification. I have none. It is simply perplexing.
The leftovers remained on the counter, untouched, a silent accusation against everything he thought he knew. 3 months after the leftovers, Renkal walked past the Patterson house in the late afternoon.
Uncle Vince!
Uncle. A kinship title. They are assigning me a role in their familial structure without authorization.
Sorry? That's just what we call you now. Mom says you are practically family.
I see. That is acceptable.
The children scattered back to their play, but the word hung in the air like a brand. At 3:07 a.m., Vincent sat before a blank data screen, the cursor pulsing like a second heartbeat.
How do I report that an 8-year-old has compromised my operational identity with a single word? They have claimed me, not as a threat, but as kin. My mission parameters did not account for this.
The blank report remained open until dawn, a confession of something he could not yet name. A grinding screech and rising steam announced the failure of Vincent's vehicle in the driveway.
Heard that from across the street. Looks like your radiator's gone. I've got tools. Let me take a look.
He has observed a mechanical failure from a distance and is volunteering physical labor. His motives are unclear.
Just a cracked hose. I've got a spare in the garage. Don't even think about paying me. That's what neighbors are for.
He refuses compensation. In my culture, debt is a tangible tether. I do not understand how to balance this transaction.
Brian spent the afternoon replacing the hose, topping the fluid, and asking about nothing more than weekend plans.
He expects nothing in return. His species' reciprocity algorithms are either non-existent or vastly superior to ours.
That night, a new section appeared in his report: Reciprocal Altruism Anomalies.
If this is a tactical seduction, it is without flaw. If it is genuine, then my entire species is blind.
He saved the entry before he could delete it, the weight in his chest now a permanent fixture. In the weeks that followed, Renkal began reviewing mission parameters outside of required hours, searching for the logic that had vanished.
If human kindness is illogical, then perhaps the Coalition's cold logic is insufficient to understand this species. I have started looking forward to their invitations. This is not part of the protocol. It is dangerous.
He opened a personal log, unsent, unencrypted, and typed words never meant for the Directorate.
My species has no word for welcome. We have only threshold and trespass. These humans blur the line. If I failed this mission, it would not be because my cover was blown. It would be because I chose to stop being Vincent.
He reviewed the family's behavioral data, but the numbers no longer held the same clinical comfort.
Emma's laugh, Jake's awkward wave, Lily chasing sparklers. These are not data points. They are memories. What would the Directorate do if they knew? They would reassign me, erase this, erase them from my memory.
He closed the personal log without saving it, but the words had already carved their place. In the 7th month, Renkal opened the mandatory report and let his fingers type a phrase that would cross an operational line.
Incomprehensible willingness to extend tribal kinship to a stranger. The words were true, and he no longer cared how they would be read.
He pressed send before hesitation could betray him, the weight of months falling onto a single transmission. Hours later, the apartment's darkness was cut by the blue shimmer of an incoming hologram. Director Tal's cold face filling the room.
Agent Renkal, your report contains subjective assessments. This is unlike your previous work. Explain. I will not repeat myself. Maintain emotional distance. You are not here to feel. Acknowledge.
Acknowledged, Director. The observation was noted. I will recalibrate. She did not order the entry deleted. The words remain as evidence of something she cannot see. They are monitoring my reports now, but they cannot monitor my memory. I will not forget their faces.
He closed the channel and sat in the dark. The report still open, the phrase a small, defiant pulse on the screen. 3 days later, a knock on his door came not from the directorate, but from Brian Patterson with a grin too wide to refuse.
You are coming with me, Vince. No arguments. Linda's been planning all week.
He is physically propelling me toward the house. Resistance may cause more scrutiny. I will comply.
Surprise. Happy birthday, Vincent.
A tributary ritual. They remembered a fabricated date and executed a commemoration. This is unprecedented.
Made this for you. Took a few weekends. It's not much, but you are one of us now, Vince.
A tool for aquatic capture. But the texture, the labor, it is not a tool. It is a symbol of permanent inclusion.
For a split second, his fingers closed around the lure with a tenderness no spy protocol could explain, and his disguise slipped. Just a flicker of raw, yellowed emotion.
They have no idea what they have given me. Not a gift, a chain, and I do not wish to break it.
He excused himself before the candles were finished, the lure clutched in his pocket like a live wire, and walked the short distance home under a darkening sky. Inside his apartment, Vrenkal pulled off the cheap wig, then the sunglasses, setting them on the counter like shed skin.
The lure, carved by hand, adorned with care. He held it under the lamp, turning it like a rare artifact. You are one of us now, Brian had said. Words that should have no tactical value, yet they pierced deeper than any intel. The coalition demands detachment, but this small piece of wood represents something my species does not have a name for.
He set the lure on the desk, upright, as if it were a sentinel, and sank into the chair with no intention of writing a report.
If I open that file, I must write something false. I cannot. Not tonight.
The hours crept by in silence. The lure remained on the desk, the only thing in the room that felt real.
A gift without transaction. A welcome without suspicion. It does not compute, and yet it is the only truth I trust now.
The report button on his slate glowed dimly, untouched. He made no move to press it. By dawn, he had not moved. The weight of the gift had settled into silence, and the spy had become the one watched. The next afternoon, he sat at the desk and opened a new report file. The cursor blinked, unmoving, for 17 minutes.
The report requires me to reduce Linda's leftovers and Brian's gift to data. My fingers will not comply.
A tear slid down his green cheek, dropping onto the edge of the slate. He stared at it as if it were a foreign substance.
The potato salad, the nickname, the car repair, the birthday cake, and now this lure. Each one a data point I cannot file.
His shoulders shook. Decades of conditioning cracked open, and a sound escaped him that no coalition operative was permitted to make.
These are the first creatures who treated me as more than a tool. If I continue, I betray the only welcome I have ever known.
He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, and with the other, closed the blank report. Then he opened a file he had never intended to use.
I am not a spy anymore. I am Vincent, and Vincent belongs to a family across the street. That is the only truth that remains.
The resignation template glowed in the dim apartment, an accusation and a confession, waiting for words that would end one life and begin another. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, not to delay, but to choose each word. The lure stood guard. He typed the words that would end a mission. Unconditional welcome. Humans possess this. My species does not.
I have found a concept my kind cannot name, and I will not destroy it.
His finger, still shaking, pressed the transmission key. The slate pulsed once, then bloomed red. Resignation accepted. Agent status defected. The words hovered above the fishing lure like a verdict.
I am no longer Agent Vrenkal. I am a defector, a traitor, a free man.
He collapsed back into the chair, the weight of a double life evaporating into the apartment's stale air.
I am exhausted, and for the first time in decades, I am not afraid.
Then his lips curled, not the stiff smile of a deep cover operative, but a genuine, unguarded human expression.
Vincent. The name fits now. It is not a disguise. It is who I have become.
The fishing lure remained on the desk, a silent testament to the power of a backyard barbecue. The apartment, once a surveillance hub, was stripped bare. Only the fishing lure remained on the counter.
Everything else could be discarded. The lure had become non-negotiable.
I checked for coalition reprisal each morning. No signal. No retrieval. Just the silence of a world that had moved on.
Tal's silence was either contempt or mercy. I will never know which. The Pattersons will never know. Not from fear, but because the truth adds nothing to what they already gave me.
A month later, he walked to their house with a bowl of potato salad, the wig perfectly adjusted, the smile no longer rehearsed.
Vince, right on time. You are really getting the hang of this.
Brian's hand landed on his shoulder, and Vincent did not flinch. He leaned into it.
This is home, not the apartment, not the security of solitude. This backyard, these people.
That night, the lure on his desk cast a long shadow, a quiet sentinel over a life reclaimed. 40 summers of charcoal smoke, 40 winters of Linda's holiday dinners, and Vincent never missed a single one. The kids outgrew the backyard toys, then the backyard, then the neighborhood, but Uncle Vince was always there, quiet, smiling, always with a side dish in hand. He became the family historian, remembering every joke, every recipe, every sparkler that burned out too soon. He and Brian took up fishing. Vince would carry the hand-carved lure, never attaching it to a line, as if it were too sacred.
You know, you've never caught a thing with that lure. You sure it works?
It works perfectly. It caught me.
Time deepened the lines around their eyes, but the friendship only grew simpler. Linda's hair turned silver. Emma had children. Jake grew a beard, and Lily became a teacher. And all of them still called him Uncle Vince. Every 4th of July, he arrived at 2 p.m. with a bowl of potato salad. The same bowl, the same recipe, the same quiet gratitude. In the autumn of 2390, Brian Patterson did not show up to light his grill. By evening, he was in a hospital bed with wires and soft beeps. Vincent arrived within the hour, wig slightly askew, clutching a small paper bag that held the fishing lure.
He asks for you every morning, Vince. Says he needs to tell you something, but then he forgets.
He needs to tell me something. 40 years, and I still fear he might have known.
For 12 days, Vincent sat at Brian's bedside, reading aloud from old fishing magazines, the lure resting on the nightstand. On the 13th afternoon, Brian's eyes opened clearly for the first time in days, and he turned his hand palm up.
The hand that handed me a spatula, that fixed my car, that carved this piece of wood. I will hold it as long as I can. You gave me a name, brother. In my language, there is no word for what you did.
Brian's lips moved, but no sound came. His fingers tightened once, then relaxed, as if the message had been received. Vincent did not let go until the nurse arrived at dusk, and the fishing lure remained on the table, a secret that would survive them both. The memorial was held under a flawless September sky, the kind Brian would have called perfect for lighting charcoal.
Vince, would you speak? He would have wanted it to be you.
Vincent walked to the podium, the hand-carved lure pressed against his palm, invisible to everyone but him.
My name is Vincent. For 40 years, Brian Patterson called me neighbor, friend, and then something I didn't understand. It began with a cookout. I brought potato salad. I did not know that a bowl of starch and mayonnaise could be an invitation to belong. He gave me a fishing lure once, carved by hand, painted by his own patience. I never caught a fish with it, but it caught me. Brian taught me a word my people do not have. It is not hospitality. It is not kindness. It is the thing that says, "You are one of us," without condition. Because of him, I am no longer a stranger anywhere. I am Uncle Vince. I am the man who brings potato salad. And I have never been prouder of any title.
Linda pressed a handkerchief to her mouth, and from the third row, Emma whispered, "That's Uncle Vince." The name had never been more true. He stepped down from the podium and placed the lure on Brian's flowers. A secret too heavy to speak and too sacred to ever reveal. The crowd thinned under the September sun, and Vincent retrieved the lure from the flowers, holding it like a still, warm hand.
Vince, Brian used to say you were the best thing that ever happened to our block. I think he was right.
She will never know the literal truth, and it no longer feels like a lie. Thank you, Linda, for everything. For the leftovers, the birthdays, the backyard.
He walked home alone, the lure in his pocket, the same sidewalk he had crossed 1,000 times as both spy and friend. In his apartment, he placed the fishing lure on the nightstand, then sat on the edge of his bed as the room dimmed.
I have grieved as an operative before, never as a friend. This is a new territory, and it is hollow.
For the first time in 40 years, he allowed the tears to fall without cataloging them, without a report to justify them.
Brian Patterson, you gave me a name, and I will carry it until my last breath.
Outside, the world turned toward a future without Brian Patterson. But inside this small room, the fishing lure stood vigil, and Vincent slept. 10 years after the funeral, the Interstellar Council chamber had grown used to an old man with a wooden lure on his desk and a quiet authority that disarmed aggression.
Human diplomats argued over resources and borders. I offered them a lesson from a suburban backyard.
His negotiating philosophy was built on a single, unshakable principle: unconditional welcome.
Brian Patterson never negotiated a treaty. He simply fixed a stranger's car and handed him a piece of carved wood. That was enough to change a species.
One afternoon, a young human aide stepped into his office. Her eyes landing on the aging lure, she asked, "Ambassador, I've always wondered, what is that old fishing lure for? You never use it."
It belonged to an old friend. He taught me that the smallest gift, given freely, can anchor a life. If I said more, she would hear the word alien and lose the truth. Brian's gift transcends origin.
The aide nodded, satisfied, and left with a new understanding of diplomacy. As the door clicked shut, Vincent touched the lure, and for a moment, the charcoal smoke of a 4th of July barbecue seemed to fill the sterile air. The fishing lure on the embassy desk was worn smooth by decades of touch. Its paint faded to the color of old wood and older memory. The chair behind it was empty, the ambassador gone for the evening, but the room held the residue of a long vigil. As the camera panned slowly across the room, it found a framed photograph on the wall, the only personal item besides the lure. It was an old photograph. The Patterson family gathered in their backyard, Brian at the grill, Linda waving, the kids chasing sparklers, and there in the back, a figure in a terrible wig and sunglasses held a bowl of potato salad, smiling a smile that had taken a lifetime to learn. The office held no trophies, no proclamations, only a fishing lure that never caught a fish and a picture of a family that never knew the truth. A sunbeam shifted, catching the aged wood of the lure, and for a still moment, the entire room seemed to exhale with gratitude. No one else was there to see it. The legacy was quiet, invisible to galactic politics, and utterly unshakable. The photograph would remain there for decades to come, and the lure would never be moved, a silent sentinel over a life built on a single act of unconditional welcome. In the same suburban neighborhood, a century-old porch held a woman who had buried her husband and kept his memory in a leather album. Linda Patterson was 94, and the world had changed around her, but her front porch faced the same quiet street. A young neighbor walking her dog waved, and Linda waved back, the motion fluid with decades of habit. She opened the album to a page that never changed, a photograph of Brian at the grill, and beside him, Vincent, holding potato salad, The laugh lines around her eyes deepened as she traced the edge of the picture, a secret she never needed to know. Vincent still called every Sunday. She never asked about the embassy, and he never mentioned the sunglasses. She closed the album and set it on the swing, the autumn light catching the gold leaf of the Patterson house across the street. Some secrets are not kept out of fear, but out of love. She smiled to herself, not at the photo, but at the fullness of a life where the only necessary question had been whether to bring potato salad. The screen door creaked once, and the house settled into silence, as if the world itself understood that some stories need no telling. The same backyard, decades later. A new father flips burgers on a glowing grill, his children chasing a levitating dog across the lawn. A young boy, no more than 7, runs across the grass clutching a wooden fishing lure worn smooth by decades of touch. Its paint faded but proud. He turns it over in his palm, tracing the old paint with a small finger, as if trying to read the story carved into the grain. He dashes past the picnic table, where a ceramic bowl of potato salad sits, unchanged in recipe, unchanged in meaning. The camera rises, pulling away from the boy, from the smoke of the grill, from the laughter that echoes across 100 summers. It lifts above the wooden fence, past the Patterson house, now adorned with solar shingles and a quiet, hovering delivery drone. The suburb spreads below, a patchwork of old lawns and new tech, where sky cars glide silently above tree-lined streets unchanged for a century. The sizzle of the grill fades for a moment, then returns, sharper, as if the sound itself has become a legacy. The image holds on the rooftops, then slowly, almost imperceptibly, begins to darken at the edges. The screen fades to black, and for a long, still moment, the only sound is the distant, comforting hiss of a barbecue that will never stop.